Ben,
Max.
yeah, I was just talking to Max. He was, yeah, we were just talking about some things. But yeah, I'm glad to see you, man. How you doing?
Well, doing good is what seems to be happening. As is saying, I'm doing good. Who knows? You know? Let's
Yeah,
tell.
so I saw some of the stuff that you were sending me. That's pretty funny. Um, it's funny, you know, the criticisms that I can receive from radical non-duality. Um, and then when I read like what Tony Parsons actually writes, I'm like, "Well, how is this different from what I mean, it's like it's so contrarian. Like people are so adamant about knocking other people down or knocking what they're saying rather than just, having fun with the nuance of language. But they don't even realize that their own guy is saying, just completely outlandish things in comparison to what, they are themselves saying radical non duality is. It's so funny. It's like Tony Parsons himself is saying, things that don't make sense at all, like completely ridiculous. The individual wants this and wants that. What individual? Okay.
I don't
I
know.
mean,
I don't
how
know.
completely, you know, uh, just contrarian to your own logic is that? It's like the individual wants this and the individual, what individual wants what? If
Yes.
if you either want or you don't want. You either can or you cannot want in that framework of logic. Whereas I am saying you do and you don't want. It's kind of both. There's
Yes.
no opposite involved. And I get, it's like criticized for these kind of, ideas, and or just for saying things. But then to hear the radical non-dualist and then the Tony Parsons himself make such a just contrary statement to what his entire radical non-duality thing is about. It's just ridiculous. In that, um, in the end, he's basically saying, you know, nothing special in at all. I mean, he's basically saying there is someone there that wants something that they can't have.
But is
But
there? Is there?
on top of that, there's no one there. And it's like, okay, fine. There isn't someone there. I get it. However,
However,
um,
there is and there isn't,
what
right?
is the difference between seeking an individual seeking energy, which means what? I mean, what does that mean exactly? You know, the individual seeking energy wants to do this, and somehow that's wrong. But then to go on and say, but nobody's there to want anything. So what is that? What does individual seeking energy mean? And what is this nonsense? The it's not that I don't uh, understand what he means, but he's trying to play both sides against the middle, and the reality is that it's both simultaneously. It's not one way or the other, and it's not really Tony. Maybe I don't know. I'm not trying to down or say anything specifically about Tony Parsons. It's just that there's like this idea that there's this army of radical non-dualists that are somehow holding this gate of some kind of special, some kind of special way of looking at it. When it's all just ridiculously spiraling into just this idea that you're in this little group and you have this way of thinking about it and it's the right way and you're the only and you're radical and you're this and it's the arrogance of it is so off-putting to me. It's like on the one hand you don't exist, and on the other hand, how you think about that matters. Well, what does
Yes.
that mean? How do you go about doing it? Um, somehow has to be confined within this particular way of thinking about it that Tony Parsons can approve or not approve of. Specifically, like if he doesn't approve of you, then you're off the reservation. Man, you can kiss my ass. I mean,
But
seriously, kiss my ass. You are not going to be the arbiter of what is and is not permissible to talk about non-duality, and that is completely unacceptable to me. You don't tell. You're not the one that can say what is and is not radical, or yes, somehow like you're kicking people out, shunning folks, making them feel bad. You can be a part of our crew or not, but you have to pass through this this person that has the ability to either squash your um, ability to make a living. If you don't, if he doesn't approve of you and what you're saying, then he can stifle your format. He can really kind of control your life, and
but
that is sick to me. I mean, and to let anyone do that to you means that honestly, you need to take control of your own little appearance. Anyone that is afraid of this man needs to speak out and say, look, dude, you don't control me and you don't control the format. And you cannot, tell me what is okay for with you at that moment. Because from what I can see, your mind changes quite a bit. And when it's okay and when it's not okay, who would want to be under the thumb of such authoritarian nightmare than this guy and his massive ego? Tony Parsons is I mean, it's way more basic than you would imagine. I mean, I thought he was a little bit more little deeper, but he's not. He literally is trying to control people. And that is to me kind of repulsive, and I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what I thought was, I mean, I didn't think it would be so basic, but looking at it from what I see, it is truly the most icky human, basic, ego driven, you know, simplicity that you could ever imagine. It's far more simple and human and basic in that he has his little toy there that he's controlling very much, and the people within it, and the people that have their livelihood tied up with the radical non-duality and that crew of audience.
but
Um,
but Howard, just to interrupt you a bit, but is there a separated individual like a Howard or a Sander or a Tony or a whoever, it doesn't matter who, doing that already?
no,
No.
well, it is. It is. I mean, dualistically, I choose the path I want to.
Of course.
Dualistically, I appear in time and space, making my own decisions to a certain degree. I mean, it's an open ended. See, the beautiful thing about it is that both sides have open ends. You could choose within the sides aren't really sides, and the opposition is not really opposition, and there are nuances within nuances within nuances, all the way up and down the line. The reality is you could look at this in 100 different ways now, and from both sides. And that's the cool thing about it. Nobody can tell you specifically and objectively this is it, and
No.
then explain it.
Because
So
because
you
there's
they can say this is it because this is what I think, but I don't think. But that's a choice to believe that I think or I don't think. But they
but
can't know that.
is the choice already controllable? Is there something which can already control to choose, or is the idea that it's controllable or not controllable, is that actual controllable already, or is it?
Well, it's all subjective, no matter which way you want to go with it. It's neither. See, it's for me. I mean, this is the way I have come to understand what I see. It's not one or the other. Okay, it's not control or not control. Right?
It's both.
It's
Both.
both
Yes.
happening
Yeah.
simultaneously.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
okay, but that's subjective in its own right, and I could tell you why. Okay, I think that, I think that, and and why I think that I don't, and I do think. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. If you want to really get into whether or not a person thinks, okay, that is an infinite regress that goes forever. You cannot know, you will never know, but you can experience being expressed, right? You can experience already being, right? Like what you're doing is not really you doing it, you are being expressed as doing. However, what you are expressed as is an expression that is expressing itself. Okay. So it's not that you are either doing or not doing. You are being expressed as expression in the act of expression. Okay. So, but also at times you are simply expressed. You are simply already nuanced in every facet of already done, as Andreas would say, all already done. But see, the thing about it is, you are already done as doing at other times. Okay. So it's not one or the other yet again. And it can split off again. You can split off again, and it's the doing, not doing, doing again, not doing. And it doesn't even matter. It goes into the nuances of an infinite amount of subtleties that will not be contained. They will not be described. They will not be defined, and they will not be contained or corralled. You cannot explain it. It will not be named.
But
And
this
the idea that you can think that you have it and it's this basic parochial elementary this is it attitude is horse shit. It's
well,
horse shit. It's complete nonsense. And it's designed for people that want to feel as if they have some kind of uh, control. And that's the funniest thing about it is the control that you have lost control. So here's this thing that people are doing where they're playing this game with themselves that they believe, that they don't believe, that they believe, that they can't believe, that they think, that they don't think. And you're playing this game and keeping yourself spiraling into this ridiculous little mind game that you play, and you can't go forward or back or sideways or left, and I'm not doing anything and I am doing anything and I think I'm doing anything and blah 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 blah. It means fuck all. And the reality of the situation is you want that. You want that because you would rather have that spiraling in the mud and drinking the sand and calling it champagne, saying you know something, when in reality you know nothing. And you're sitting there in the mud playing in this game of ridiculous not being able to do anything and being all kind of uh, structured into this thing of no structure. It's a it's kind of a counterintuitive sadomasochistic. I have no choice, therefore I can't do anything thing, and I'm already expressed, so I can't feel this way, or I can't. No,
well,
it
anything
is
can happen,
so.
right?
No,
Anything,
no,
anything
no,
can
no.
happen.
The death of self is a celebration
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you can't be defined and it can't be corralled, and you can't say it's just this because
Oh,
there's no explanation for this.
but I'm
What
not
is just
saying that.
this? In a million years, you couldn't say what this moment is.
But
And so,
well, sorry, I'm not. I'm not stating that there's just this. A bit. No,
not you. I don't mean I'm not. I don't mean.
no, no, no,
I
no,
think people
no.
misunderstand me when I go on these rants. I'm not attacking the person I'm talking to. I'm talking about radical non-duality as a whole. And I'm talking about the genre that is based in keeping people in this little stuck mire where you can't do anything. And the reality is that whether you can or you can't is irrelevant. You actually can and you can't. You know, it's not one or the other. You are actually not doing and you are doing at the same time.
Yes.
It's actually better. And as this moment is infinite, okay, and dual and non-dual, right? Um, it's both happening and not happening at the same time.
Yes.
So it appears as if we are choosing and making our little minds up and traveling through all possibility, right?
Yes.
But we've always been in that possibility. That possibility is always there. We just pass through it. So it's non-dualistically already there. It always has been there. And dualistically, we pass through it as it appears we are choosing our paths. So no matter what path we choose, we've always been there. So it's not space and time. It's not a linear chain of events.
No.
See, and that's where people are confused. They think that it has to have something to do with logic. It has to have something to do with reason and meaning and purpose in the linear chain of events. And the fact that, for example, subject and object melding. Okay, subject and object melding. And suddenly you realize I'm not really looking at anything. You know, that's not what's happening. You know, I'm not an individual looking at something separate from myself.
No.
You know, that's not happening. So the oddest part about that is, so now you're not really separate from what you see, and the observer is the observed, right? And but no different from the chair chairing or the table tabling or the lamp lamping, as Tony would say. Howard is Howarding.
Howard, yes,
Saunders
totally.
is Saundering.
Thunder is
There
sounding,
is,
Howard is Howarding, yes. Beautiful.
yes, and so there's no, Howard is simply Howarding. I mean, so
Yes.
as
Beautiful.
Howard will do,
Yes.
just as a lamp will do. You are not contained by any explanation whatsoever. The opposites involved here don't exist. On or off, like dead or alive, okay, true or false, real or unreal, are all they don't
Simultaneously.
exist. They're not opposite from each other. They appear, but they just are part of the story of is. But
Yes.
there is no is or is not. You know,
Well,
there is no color or
well, there is,
differentiation or light or dark, none of that stuff. So the idea that it is, dual or non-dual, or that once you meld subject and object, it's just this, right? And there's nothing else. What you're doing is creating your idea of separation upon a lack of separation. You're taking what was once the duality of subject object, all right, and then melding that, and you drop that veil and you say, oh my God, I'm not really actually observing anything, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, nothing is separate from, there's nothing separate. I'm not really doing anything, but I am expressed as doing,
yes.
uh, the, and then to say, but there's nothing other than what appears to be me doing this. So there's nothing beyond the immediate experience of Howard Howarding in a way, which is also a misnomer, which is also that
Yes.
you could look at that as
Yes, because no one knows that already.
right.
I
So
mean,
right, and that's just the story of that. But then
yes.
to say that there's nothing beyond it happening is to say that this is a relative situation, that it's relative to something else is even relevant. It's not.
Well,
Relativity itself, because subject and object no longer are a thing relative to another thing, therefore immediate experience is not relative to another position, makes it irrelevant. Whether there's something other than this or not is not even, it's not even pertinent, because
I,
you're not a thing relative to another thing. So immediate experience is not a thing relative to another thing, which means there's, whether there's something other than it is an irrelevant idea of separation. You're already putting separation on what's not separate. So the fact that this is infinite and finite simultaneously, and the nuance of is just this being infinite, there's nothing next to the infinite, right? So what I'm saying is, and then I can get into my own story and what I saw from beyond even what that is. Because once you go past the idea that there is even relativity, or that this is relative to something else, or this story is different from yours, right? Now, how is it that we are each other and yet we are separate and we can't really know each other? However, so we have that privacy, right? And at the same time, we can't really know ourselves. So we're not really a thing next to another thing that I can't know, right? So it's not that I can know whether objectively what is not separate from me. However, I don't know it. So it's both not knowing and not knowing, in that the beautiful game of separation is it appears separate, but is not. And I appear to be in a situation where there's nothing outside of what I'm aware of or what I appear to be aware of. However, none of that is actual. I'm not actually a thing being aware of anything. So relativity doesn't mean anything. So there's nothing next to something else is an irrelevant question. And what happens is, and I know this is kind of confusing, but only when you try to speak on it, because it's about separate, because speaking on it is about separation. It's about trying to explain what is. The reality is that what you don't understand and what you cannot see is not separate from what you do. And it doesn't have anything to do with Howard as a center being something other than the appearance of somebody that could think, right, or that can do. But it doesn't mean that I'm any less a part of something either. There's no center and no parameter means that, as insignificant as I am everything that appears. And so is everyone else, and everything else. Everything is everything and everyone, and nothing at all. Because
Okay.
not only is it amazing that within the game of the separation and the fact that we know and don't know each other and know that we can't know and could logically figure out a lot of these things, the, the reality is that once you realize that the limit to what you can understand is not the limit to the appearance, it's just a limit to what appears to you in the illusion of such. So because you cannot, because you don't know the limit to the appearance, there is no limit. There is no limit to how many ways to appear. There is no limit to anything. Your imagination is not to be, you know, uh, smothered or stifled. Your um, appearance is not to be um, nullified or somehow corralled. You are free beyond your ability to understand that. So no matter what you do, you are within, I mean, there's just literally no limit to what can possibly be. There is no way that your imagination could possibly, as it appears, encompass what what is, from the lack of, there's no words to say it. But the reality is, um, once you understand that, whereas Tony and radical non-duality, Jim Newman, and all of that, what they're trying to say is that there's nothing outside the cave that they are currently existing in. There's nothing out, other than the
But is there a
mountain
cave?
and the cave that they're in.
Is
And
there
so
a cave?
there's no way to, there's no reason to explore. To explore is to seek. To seek is to somehow show some kind of weakness for curiosity. Whereas now No, the whole point is that you cannot know. And therefore, no matter what you do, whether you want to just rest in your laurels and be happy where you're at is fine. You don't have to do anything. But the beauty of it is you can do whatever you want. That's the point. You are free anarchistically without choice. You are anarchistically free in that there is nowhere that you can say, this is it, and explain that. There's nowhere.
Okay, Howard, wait.
Simply because of the well, and I can explain that too. And it's very simple. And it doesn't even take that much. Insofar as your ability to think that you're conscious being subjective, the signals that you receive from your nervous system cannot be verified. They cannot be objectively um, substantiated. You don't know what those signals are. You have no idea. There's no way to check it. So the signals that your nervous system are supposedly receiving from outside and inside your body get processed through a brain that's supposedly in time and space, but your brain cannot be cross-referenced.
It's a
So it's
closed loop.
processing signals that cannot be observed outside of the story that there's signals outside of a nervous system that go through a brain that processes the reality. But you cannot know anything about those signals or that processor or that reality exists at all as it
Exactly.
supposedly
Exactly.
is suggesting. So
So
right there and then is the simplicity of the subjective nature of consciousness and the infinite regress of everything. So you have absolutely no idea whether you are in a reality or what existence is, etc. And you can do whatever you want to do. You can say whatever you want to say, but the infinite regress of consciousness is not a choice. It is simply the reality. So right there, you don't need to adhere yourself to any ridiculous nullification of self. The self now, because you have no tether to what seems like this physical world and physical body and all of this relativity stuff, cause and effect, matter and motion, all of this stuff. See, the thing is that once you lose that tether, that death of self, now it's not that self dies and you're just going through this um, nightmare of whatever it is you want to coma, this you're not thinking, you're not doing, you're just sitting here in your immediate experience being expressed, waiting for somebody to, I mean, or whatever. I mean, it's just a nightmare. That radical non-duality take on it is redonkulous. But not only is it not that, or it could be if you want it to be, but there's no reason to adhere yourself to that. It's the celebration that yourself is known, it cannot be defined. And whatever that self means, there's no description, there's no definition, there's no knowledge, there's no logical reason regarding the self. And so you are not tied to the story of life, death, and birth. It doesn't work that way so solely, or can't. It may not. I'm not going to say it's not that way, but I can't know that it is that way or not. Right. So the death of self is the celebration that you are not tied to the story of physicality. And that physicality itself is just a story in itself. So it's the wiggle room of, wow, maybe I don't die. Maybe I am non-duality, and I'm somehow everything and everyone, or who knows? But but explore that. Realize that you're not, the self is not physical, and and even physicality doesn't have a an objective verification. So
oh,
it appears physical, and it's not, being dualistic is not a bad thing. The self kind of checks in. To me, the self feels like a voice in a quorum, so to speak, in my head, where it's not the arbiter of what I'm doing. I mean, the self doesn't tell me what to do and not to do, but it's kind of a voice that checks in on occasion. Like myself comes in out of nowhere and just kind of listens to the conversations that I have in my head, because it's all dualistic. Thought is dualistic. The thought is essentially, there's something other than me. How am I going to react to it? And when you're daydreaming, you're not aware that there's something other than yourself, right? So when you're daydreaming, you're kind of like in that space where you're not a thing relative to other things, right? But then as soon as you're aware of something other than yourself, you come out of the daydream and you have to decide how you're going to react to what appears to be something other than yourself. And that's the duality of mind. The duality of mind is that you think you're in space and time and aware of something other than yourself, and in fact you are, in the appearance of such. It's just not validated to be that way.
Exactly.
And
There's
so
no way of knowing.
there's no way of knowing. So the coolest thing about it is you are dualistic and non-dualistic at the same time,
Yes.
and any other way that you can conceive is not right or wrong. And
Of course not.
there is nothing that should stymie that. And
No.
anybody that says that you cannot explore, you know, people call people call seekers like it's a negative thing. The seeker energy is trying to do something. Look, either the seeker is doing something or he's not. How can he not be able to think for himself and do something wrong simultaneously? That's just bullshit. And what it's designed to do is to keep people under that thumb where they feel like they want to feel something. They need to feel something so bad because they're so lost that they think that, well, wow, if I have to check my personal pronouns and if I have to stay within this kind of there is no self kind of limiting factor, then somehow in this weird way, it means something. What I'm doing actually, um, for some reason, counterintuitive, paradoxically, um, gives me the attention I need, because I'm not here. So I can't, there must be a proper protocol to such and such and such. So it's mind policing, and it's as old as religion, and it's a cult like type thing. And from what I understand, it's far more uh, simple. I mean, it's not from what I'm gathering. Uh, the radical non-duality is not a bunch of you know geniuses that somehow are lofty. No, they're caught behind the barbed wire of some sadistic old man and his want to control his little, you know, hobby, um, with whatever means necessary. And I heard it's pretty rough. I mean, he can be pretty hardcore on people. And I don't care what anybody says about that. If that's the way it is, and he's holding people and their livelihood, hostage so that they have to toe the party line, that's sick to me. And that's cult like behavior. And I think that, yeah, I sympathize with the speakers that have to, that, I mean, can you imagine? You can't say what you want to say. You can't just imagine, you can't just be freely flowing, with friends that you love and just, hey, this is something occurred to me. Oh, I had a glimpse. Oh my God, can you imagine this and that? And it might be contrary to what the big guy at the top is saying. So you must not say it, or he will um curtail your platform, and he'll make it hard for you. And it's the from the information I'm getting is that it's really petty high school shit, and I think it's high time that that should be exposed for what it is. And all of these people that are trying to, make radical non-duality some kind of badge of honor should open their eyes to the little cliquish mentality that is running it. Um, and I refuse to apologize for being myself and saying what I want, figuring my own stuff out. You can't tell me what to think and do. Are you out of your mind? I mean, that's just sick. And to have some and to want that in your life is sadomasochistic. You want to be controlled. And then the other people that unfortunately realize too late that they all their eggs are in that basket and they got to make that living, and so they cannot deviate from the the lesson plan. I feel for them, but I